Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today I'm here to bring you 10 of the absolute most crazy, twisted, and disturbing movies that are actually really, really good and worth more than one watch. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. All right, so here we are. We have 10 crazy, extreme movies that are disturbing, but actually really good. And you know these type of movies. So these aren't movies that horror. There are certain horror movies, for instance, that have they're just very graphic. Maybe they have they're just very hard horror. Whether it's blood, sex, whatever is in it, it's just like way over the top, and you're like, I got through that once. Once was enough. There are other movies like that are out there. They're graphic, they're extreme, they're disturbing. They're meant to just kind of blow the audience's mind and leave them feeling uneasy, and you never kind of want to watch those again. But then there are other movies like the ones on this list that maybe they do have some graphic stuff. Maybe they do have some things that are considered extreme, disturbing, or whatever, but they are really good movies. There's enough meat on the bone to really kind of dive into them more than once, and they kind of earn that disturbing, extreme, whatever content that's in them. And that is the list that we have here. Now, the first one on the list, I'm going to admit, I went back and forth on whether to add this on the list or not, because I think out of all these, maybe it has the least like mainstream appeal and rewatchability, but it is shot so well, so stylistically, and it's so unique. I'm going to put it on this list at number 10. Now, if it was just for shock value, if it was just for disturbing and crazy imagery and crazy storyline and disturbing twisted nature, it would probably be at number 1. But for all those other reasons, it's number 10, and I'm talking about 2021's Titane. Now, this is directed by, hopefully I can get her name right, Julia Ducournau. Hopefully I got somewhere in the ballpark on that. But this stars Alexia, the character's name is Alexa, and she is in an accident that nearly costs her life, and she's left with like a very pure, like, titanium plate in her head. And this thing in her skull she begins to change. And she begins to become, I don't know, she's attracted to cars. And she's kind of like an exotic dancer that dances with these cars. And it really begins to change her personality. You can't tell, like, if she's imagining certain things, or if there's some kind of supernatural elements, because, guys, I'm going to tell you, and ladies, she actually has a rendezvous with a car. I mean, it is like it's like if you watch the movie Christine, if they took their relationship to the next level, that's what you would have here. We actually see this scene. We see, Satan's lowrider hopping up and down, and we kind of cut to inside, and somehow does she or does she not become pregnant with child from this rendezvous with the car. I'm telling you, I can't decide, like, if I can't, it's twisted. It's very twisted. It's very disturbing. But what's more disturbing is then she begins to go on this crime spree. There's this crime spree that begins to happen. And in order to try to evade that, she disguises herself as the long-lost son of this other guy. And there is this twisted relationship that happens there. Twisted and disturbing are probably the best two adjectives to describe this movie, but it is shot just in a scintillating stylistic manner. And it has a little bit of a music video vibes to it at parts, which can kind of maybe wear thin as far as stylistically after a while. But it was just so unique and crazy. It probably has the least rewatchability of anyone on this list, but I feel like it earned a place here, and it comes in at number 10. Proceed with caution. Proceed with caution. Now, at number 9 is one that is infamous. Like, I mean, this is one that as soon as I say it, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I know that movie, but doesn't get talked about a lot because it is absolutely disturbing and twisted, and people really don't know how to approach it, but it is very rewatchable. It was directed by Brian Usna, who is actually producer for a lot of Stuart Gordon films. I'm talking about 1989's Society. This movie gives a whole new term to, or new meaning to the term or euphemism, get your head out of your ass. Man. So the movie is, as I said, it's directed by Brian Usna, and Billy Warlock plays Bill, who is like an ordinary guy who is in therapy, and he's part of this wealthy family, but he finds out that his wealthy family is part of this gruesome sort of sex orgy cult, and there is really a element of this that's very satirical. It kind of goes into the realm of the rich or wealthy elites living a whole different lifestyle in which they prey upon everyone else, that they live off the blood of everyone else. They live off our kind, the common person. And so it's got a lot of satire in there. It's got some very twisted and disturbing images. There's a scene where Billy catches his sister in the shower that apparently Usna went back and put in because he felt like we needed more crazy things to happen early in the film. And there's definitely a lot of body horror here. This is another one. Maybe don't eat before you watch Society, but definitely worth checking out. And it has rewatchability because it does have some dark comedy elements to it, and just the satire that's there. There's great makeup effects, all that kind of stuff. I recommend it, but I recommend you proceed with caution if you have not checked this one out. Maybe start with some others that might pop up on this list first, but Society, kind of infamous, and make sure you stick around to the end credits. I'm just going to leave it there, but Society comes in at number 9 on our list. Now, number 8 on our list is one that's done by a legendary director. It stars, award-winning actor in the lead, and is released by Criterion Collection. I'm talking about 1971's Straw Dogs. This is a Sam Peckinpah film, who Peckinpah is famous for The Wild Bunch, so he was always a guy to kind of push the envelope in a lot of ways, whether it was with violence, sex, nudity, all the above. But he did it in such a way with the filmmaking that was so good and storytelling that was so good, it earned all of those things. And this movie stars Dustin Hoffman and Susan George. And Hoffman plays a guy, I think he's like an astrophysicist, and he's tired of the violence in America. So he packs him and his wife up, and they move to the English countryside, to this small town. And he kind of starts focusing on his research, and he neglects his wife. And his wife in the film starts to draw a lot of attention of guys that are working around their house and guys in town. And this is where the movie starts to become controversial. She kind of parades around topless in front of these guys, enticing these guys because she's not getting what she wants from her husband, who to this point is portrayed as a guy who will never stand up for anything. He's kind of a weakling. And he's abhorrent to violence. Nothing is violent. He's trying to stay away and avoid all conflict and violence. But he kind of, is a little bit of a weakling. And that's how she starts to perceive him. And they don't have much of a sexual relationship. And she is kind of seeking attention from these guys and kind of teasing them. And these guys become increasingly more violent towards Dustin Hoffman and then his wife as they kind of make more advances towards her. And the tension keeps rising and rising and rising until he has to kind of make a stand, and that leads to a big, like, violent standoff where he has to resort to violence to protect his house. Now, there's a very controversial scene in here too, that it's a sexual situation, kind of a non-consensual one with some of these guys and his wife. And what was controversial is, to start with, she is portrayed as enjoying this, at least from one of the guys. And then when that's over with and it goes to the other guy and she realizes it's going to be more than one guy and this is going to continue on, then it becomes a whole other situation. And I think, like, the BBC over there, or in the UK, they made them cut out all references to her possibly enjoying the first part of this. But Peckinpah pushed things, and it's kind of like a study in showing that everyone is prone to violence when pushed hard enough, because Dustin Hoffman turns out to be anything but a weakling when he is pushed up against it and he's had enough. The movie actually had a remake. It's good too. I still prefer the original. Peckinpah is a classic. Nice release here by Criterion. Just go into it knowing it may not be what you expect, and there may be some things that confuse you. You may sympathize with the bad guys, understand where they're coming from in some situations. You may understand where the wife's coming from. It's nothing is cut and dry. Nothing is cut and dry. So Straw Dogs, a high recommend, even if you can only get through it once. But I do think there's some rewatchability here. Comes in at number 8 on the list. All right, at number 7 on the list. I could make this list a whole Cronenberg list if I'm being 100% honest, but I tried not to do that. But at number 7 just fits the bill. It's a recent watch. I picked it up on a Criterion sale. I've seen it before, and it does have some rewatchability if you have the stomach for it and you're in the right mindset. So number 7 on this list is 1996 Cronenberg classic Crash. This movie stars James Spader, Holly Hunter, Elias Koteas, who I'd still to this day think of as Casey Jones from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He is not playing that type of character here. James Spader is like a TV producer. He and his wife already have a sort of swinging relationship. They like to have sexual encounters outside their marriage, tell each other about it. It gets them turned on. They like to watch each other have sex with other people. It gets them turned on. So you already have that. But then James Spader is in a accident that nearly kills him, a car accident. And as they're recovering, he begins to change a little bit. And he is suddenly turned on by not just the things he and his wife were doing, but by car accidents and people who are mentally and physically scarred or disfigured by car accidents. And they uncover this whole subculture of other people who are attracted to this same thing. They find themselves in some extreme hot sexual situations with these people. It kind of gets bleak and disturbing with some of these people. But it really turns up their relationship. Of course, there's a scene where they're going through a car wash and James Spader is driving and Elias Koteas and his wife are in the back. I'm going to leave it at that. The movie is messed up. It's like this combo of twisted metal, twisted perversions, kinky peccadillos. Like, I mean, it is Cronenberg all the way through. You've got body horror mixed in this in some ways. You got to be ready for it. You got to be ready for it. You got to be ready for any Cronenberg. I think Crash might be in some ways his most extreme, and that's why this is down here on this list, because for some people it's going to be a one and done. But there's some other threads to uncover there if you watch it. So Crash, recommend, proceed with caution. Now, at number 6 on the list is one that's actually PG-13. And man, I think the book is a little harder, but I'm talking about 1987's Flowers in the Attic. When you talk about disturbing and twisted, and you really dive into this movie that stars Christy Swanson. I know Christy is awesome. This movie, she was younger. This thing is, it's disturbing. So after their father dies, a mother of four brings her kids to live at this like decrepit, once really nice old castle-like mansion with her parents, right? And the deal here is she's after some inheritance, and she's trying to get back in her parents' good graces, and she allows her mother to basically torture her kids by locking them in the attic. Really, it's like a hidden room. And the grandmother is just basically torturing and ignoring these kids, and their health is beginning to fail. They don't have enough to eat. They don't have enough to drink. They're in this situation, and they're only visited by basically this abusive grandmother and their mother, who seems to be caring less and less and less and less about them, about their situation and everything else, because she is hiding a dark plan and a dark secret herself. This movie, particularly the book too, but the movie hints to it. These kids only have each other. The oldest brother and oldest sister are, teenagers. They see no one outside of this room. They're stuck together. They have to do whatever they can to survive. It brings them closer, and in some ways, I'm just going to say too close. So it hints to that, and that's very twisted and disturbing. Escape is their only hope. The movie is dark. It definitely leans a little bit of horror, psychological horror, survival horror. It's just a horrific, disturbing situation and that these kids find themselves in, and can they survive? When you really watch the old trailer, it definitely has like a gothic horror feel to it. It's one that a lot of people don't think about, but man, I watched it as a kid and it did a number on me. It's hard to believe it's PG-13. If they'd have went R, I would be terrified to see where they go with it. But coming in at number 6 is 1987's Flowers in the Attic. Now, number 5 is one that I've talked about on the channel a lot. I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot, but if you haven't seen it, this movie is very, very twisted in a lot of ways. Some are obvious, some are not so obvious. I am talking about 2015's The Witch by Robert Eggers. Now, this stars Anna Taylor-Joy as Thomason, and it's a family back in the settler colonial times, and the father is, he's a religious fanatic turned up to 11. He doesn't even believe that the Puritans are good enough. And he moves his family out into the woods, which just happen to be haunted by witches and Satan himself in the form of Black Phillip, the goat. It's really about a lot of things, but you see this family. It's disturbing to watch them fall apart under the weight of their own sins and their own poor choices and their own wants and desires and fears and jealousies and all of that kind of stuff. And then you actually have witches, and you actually have the devil and all of that kind of stuff. The temptation, the devil back there pulling the strings, the witches and their influence and attacking this family. There is a lot here that is very disturbing, very twisted. It's a slow burn. And then at the end, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's twisted. Let's just say that, and it's very disturbing. But it is a well-shot movie. It's very well done. Everything about it is well done. There's maybe a little bit of pacing. Maybe we could have a little bit more stuff, but overall, it is a really intriguing movie that bears watching, and for a lot of people, rewatching to dig and find more and more threads. So Robert Eggers' The Witch from 2015. The Witch comes in at number 5. Now, at number 4 is another Stuart Gordon classic that it owes a little bit to a short story by H.P. Lovecraft. I'm talking about 1995's Castle Freak. Now, Castle Freak stars the Stuart Gordon power combo of Crampton and Combs, Barbara Crampton. Man, so this movie, Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs are married, and they have a teenage daughter, and they have a younger son who dies in a car wreck. There's a lot of car wrecks in this list. I didn't intend it that way. But he dies in a car wreck, and the wife kind of blames the husband who was driving. And they try to start fresh. They move to Italy to this castle, and this castle's harboring some secrets. And there's a little bit of a supernatural element to this, a very disturbing element. There is basically a freak, a creature, human adjacent creature that is chained up and escapes in the basement. And let's just say he's got no problem killing. He has a very high libido for a creature. And the makeup on this creature is crazy. Absolutely crazy, because the guy is like that plays it is nude all the time, but he has this makeup on him. It's so heavy. He is, as this family is falling apart, the Barbara Crampton doesn't really want to have much to do with Jeffrey Combs anymore, because there's this wedge between them, and now they have this problem in the basement, and it is a big problem to deal with in this castle. So you have all those gothic horror vibes with a castle, and it is actually a real castle. So they shot it on location. Pretty disturbing. Of course, it has a lot of sexual elements and all that kind of stuff that's typical of the Stuart Gordon type films. But man, it's one that a lot of people don't think about, but is a good movie that is also pretty twisted and disturbing. So Castle Freak comes in at number 4 on our list. At number 3 on the list is one that I promise you Tarantino has seen many, many times, because he borrowed heavily from this movie in style, tone, story in a lot of ways. This movie is very explicit in a lot of scenes. I'm talking about 1973's thriller, A Cruel Picture. This stars Christina Lindbergh. This is the release by Vinegar Syndrome, and there's actually a couple of different releases of this, because this movie was actually banned a couple of times. It was banned by the Swedish censorship. When I say it is very much a Tarantino movie. It looks like a Tarantino movie. The color palette is very much like a Tarantino film, especially if you're thinking like Kill Bill, stuff like that. There's some thought that he got the idea for the eye patch from this movie. Christina Lindbergh plays Madeline, who the movie starts off when she's a little girl, like 12 or 13, and she is assaulted. And it scars her, it messes her up, and leaves her a mute. She doesn't speak anymore. And she grows up. She's with her parents. She's still trying to deal with this tragedy that happened to her and move on. She gets set up on a date. She goes on this date, and she is taken advantage of again. She is essentially kidnapped and forced into prostitution, in sort of like this prostitution ring, and she can't get away. And every time she tries, they abuse her. They end up, that's how she ends up with the eye patch. I'm just going to leave it at that. So she devises a plan for revenge, and a long-range plan. So she's forced into this, but she does make money from this. And they begin to let her come and go as she pleases, which that poses a little problem, because to me, like after a while, it was like she had to be so motivated by revenge that she kept going back, because she had money and she could have left. She could have gotten away, but she didn't, because she was so focused on her revenge. She takes that money, she trains herself, she waits, she plans, she does all of these things, And then it has one of the biggest climaxes, ending montages that are just, it's very stylized, very Tarantino, grindhouse flicks stylization here. But it's one that's hard to watch, but it's actually a good movie. There are X-rated scenes in here, and there has been a lot of controversy over those because and how much of this was an actual actress versus adult actresses that they put in, adult stars or adult content makers. And because, like, as I read through different stories, it kind of goes back and forth. Like, at some point she said some stuff, Christine Lindbergh said some stuff wasn't her. Then later, when she was going to do like Playboy magazine or Penthouse, she said the stuff was her. Then she said some of it wasn't her again. Then some is and some isn't. Either way, I was not ready for it. I really was not ready for it. Now there's a cut of the film too that doesn't have it, but the cut that does is the more intense cut, and it makes you feel for her and root for her revenge more. So it is actually earned. It makes you, it's so jarring to see those scenes in there, but man, they make you root for her and want to fight for her even more. So it's but then there is some ambiguity when she gets her revenge on all these people, because some of the people, because I guess the prostitution wasn't illegal, and it was like a business. So some of these people may not have known what was happening. And I didn't think about that till afterwards. And I was digging into some special features and researching it. And I was like, man. And then that makes me want to watch it again, because but man, you root for her so much. It's twisted. It's disturbing. It's pretty shocking at some points in the film. But Thriller, a cruel picture, a great release too here by Vinegar Syndrome. You can just see Tarantino watching this movie and gleaning so much from it. It's not a stretch to feel like if you grew up watching Tarantino, you felt like he made this movie. It didn't. It was before his time, but man, it definitely has that much flavor in it. So Thriller, a cruel picture from 1973, comes in at number 3 on our list. Now at number 2, I am going back to Stuart Gordon one more time. I'm going back to Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs. I absolutely love this movie, but it is disturbing and really kind of twisted when you start to dig down and think about things in it. I am talking about 1985's ReAnimator. I've talked about ReAnimator a lot here recently. I really like this movie, but when you get to the point where you have a head giving head, you've reached disturbing and twisted, and then the movie itself involves around Jeffrey Combs' character of Herbert West. He is a kind of twerpy little mad scientist type who devises a way to cheat death, to reanimate dead tissue, reanimate dead people. And it doesn't really go well at all. Of course, you have Stuart Gordon here, so you're going to have that sexuality in here. You have Barbara Crampton, who is completely nude in it, and topless a couple of other times. You have the bad doctor, I call him Headless Carl Hill. He is reanimated. He's having to hold his head, and he's still a pervert. he's still messed up. He is going down on Barbara Crampton by holding his head. Listen, y'all, when you really dig down on this thing, it is pretty disturbing, pretty twisted. But there's a lot of dark comedy elements, and of course, sci-fi, horror, all that stuff, and it just works, and it is so rewatchable. I've talked about it a lot on the channel here lately because Ignite Films is doing a brand new 4K restoration from the camera negative. I am psyched. They gave all the information about how they're doing it. Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs are psyched. There's all kinds of new artwork, new sets, all that stuff that's coming out. I cannot wait to get it. It comes out in April from Ignite Films, but you can pick it up on Blu-ray. I'm sure there's DVDs out there. If you need to try before you buy, it's probably on streaming. But this is one that you're going to be able to rewatch multiple times and just have fun with in a disturbing way. This is one of those things where the disturbing, twisting nature of it is so fitting and fun, and you just can't help yourself with it. And Stuart Gordon did a great job with it. ReAnimator, you gotta love it, from 1985, comes in at number 2 on the list. And that brings us to the last one on our list, and it's one I've talked about many times. It is my favorite Cronenberg film. Absolutely, no question. It is not even close. I'm talking about 1983's Videodrome. Now, this stars James Woods as Max Wren, who is a sleazy television station producer who is looking for outlandish content to put on his television station. And he stumbles across this signal for a TV show. Apparently, it's a TV show called Videodrome, in which it involves a lot of sex and people getting abused or killed or whatever. And he is deciding that this might be good for his television network. He is so outlandish that, and it's gotten to a point in time to where even adult films are not good enough. They're not outlandish enough to be on his station because they're pitched to him in the movie. And then you're like, okay, well, that's setting the bar there. But it kind of devolves into this world as he researches and goes down the Videodrome path. It devolves into this world of conspiracy theories, wild sexual preferences and practices, and, because you got Cronenberg there. And, of course, it's got body horror. And you have Rick Baker here, Academy Award winner, doing the body horror as things like one of the most famous scenes ever is where James Woods takes the VHS tape and sticks it into this hole that appears on his stomach. And when his hand starts to become the new flesh, long live the new flesh. Cronenberg is a lot about combining technology with the human body. And there's a quote that makes me think about this movie. I actually kind of wrote the quote down a little bit to get, it says, so pertinent because this movie was ahead of its time. It says, screens are the retina of the mind's eye. Therefore, the battle for the minds and hearts of the world will be fought in the video arena. Man, that was so ahead of his time. And a lot of his concepts are ahead of their time. And you need to rewatch this movie multiple times to figure out who's bad, who's good, or maybe there's bad and good on both sides, and they both have legitimate points on both sides. But it's like a fight for the soul, the morality of North America, and then ultimately the world. Long live the new flesh. It is absolutely messed up, but Cronenberg's best work, as far as I'm concerned, it beats The Fly. It beats his other movies. I think everything that is said within this movie, while disturbing, twisted, all that kind of stuff, is so pertinent and so ahead of its time. It has to be number 1 on this list. Loads of rewatchability. And that is my list of really extreme, kind of disturbing, graphic in some instances, sexual, crazy movies that are actually really good and that are worth more than just a one-time watch for any kind of shock value or surprise value or whatever. Because there's definitely films that do that, and I'm not the biggest fan of those. If that's all the movie's trying to do and it has nothing else to say and nothing else on the bone that is interesting, it kind of doesn't appeal to me the same way. These movies have much more meat on the bone. They have much more to enjoy, much more for you to sink your teeth into, and they earn some of that stuff that is kind of shocking or disturbing or twisted or graphic or whatever. The movies and the story and the storytelling earn it, and that is what is on this list. Let me know what you think of the list. Talk about it. Pretty trippy. I got lists all the time if you enjoy this. We do lists, rankings, 4K reviews, physical media news, all kinds of stuff here from a fan and filmmaker's perspective. If that is your jam, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to help support the channel, these kind of lists and all that other stuff that I mentioned, you can join below at my Patreon link or right here on YouTube. Become a channel member, a member of the pop culture family, a fan, an icon, whatever, depending on your tier. You're going to get your name in lights, special behind the scenes videos, all that kind of stuff, little glimpses of my life, my filmmaking, so much more, and it really helps out the channel. So does using the links below. I have an Amazon storefront now, so I try to put some of these recommendations in the links and stuff like that you can get there and check, and that helps out the channel, and y'all, I really do appreciate it so much. Let me know what other kind of lists you would like to see down in the comments. Talk about these. Let me know what you think about these movies if you've seen them, and until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. I know.